Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 advocate show, Timeshares, Solution or Surrender, with our host, Irene Parker, and superhero Irene Parker, who's getting out there every day and evaluating many people's timeshare situations, their horror stories, and she helps them determine whether they have a solution or maybe we just need to be actively putting into place some steps that we have now to help them find solutions. Irene has spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours working with a lot of people, and we need everyone to join together and work together. But everyone, help me welcome Irene Parker. Hello, Irene, and welcome. This is what, your 36th show now?
I
Wow.
know.
And this is our biggest show yet. I mean, we have a
yes.
offer of a topic today. I'm excited.
Yes, and we're Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability was formed in 2019 by a group of us that resolved our timeshare disputes without paying anyone, without retaining a third party. Sometimes people don't have the time or the temperament to self-advocate, but today we have 7 military families with us today, and I'm going to summarize the importance of this show because we have a couple of lawmakers that possibly may take an interest in the topic today, which is the harm that predatory marketing, sales, and lending is occurring within our military families. So I'm going to start by introducing Megan. And Megan is in Utah, God's country, and she is a Wyndham buyer, and we're going to have each of our guests talk about their experience that made them commit to a timeshare that they just can't afford. But just briefly, the biggest complaint we have right now is the rental pitch. So I'm going to bring Andrew onto the stage here, and Andrew is here. He's been on with us a couple of times, 2 or 3 times as a guest, and he is here to support Megan, who's just beginning this horrific process. And also, I just see we weren't sure when Valerie was going to make it, but she's here. I know you're at work, so we're going to cut to the chase and talk to Valerie first because she only has about 5 minutes. Now, the purpose of the show today is there's an industry-wide scam that is very prevalent, and it is promising that if you buy more points, or if you're worried about being able to afford it, that you can rent it out and have it pay for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's one issue. We're going to set that aside for a minute. The other issue is the Service Members Civil Relief Act. Our very first guest on February 26th was Taya, and both Taya and Valerie are concerned with what happened but it's 2 different situations. Taya, who's supposed to pop in, a new mom, for about 15 minutes today, she was active duty National Guard for 11 years. And then last June, she switched to the Army because the Army will pay for her law degree. Now, she should be eligible for the Service Members Civil Relief Act, because you have to have a high interest rate loan before you join military service, and then the borrower is required to lower your interest rate to 6%. And So Valerie, I want you to hear this email before we hear your situation, which is a little
Okay.
bit different. And how I've explained it, Valerie, is that you heard during the presentation that you could get a 6% interest rate because you're military, and you remembered something about it, so you didn't really, you believed it. But then you've been with the Air Force National Guard, like Andrew, for 26 years, I think. Thank you for that service. But before we begin, I hope everyone else is outraged as I am and Megan after reading this, hearing today's story. Now, in March of 2024, I did an article about 14 military families harmed. We've heard from hundreds of veterans and active duty service members, and 4 of those are our guests today, Taya, Andrew, and Gabby. And but this is the email that Megan received on October 22nd. Honoring our military Wyndham Hotel and Resorts to support those who serve. In recognition of Veterans Day, we're celebrating active and retired military members, veterans, and their families all month long with everyday savings of 15% and bonus offers. Donate your points and we'll match up to 1 million points. As a Wyndham Rewards member, you can help support military families with special discounts and benefits. What do you have to say to that, Valerie?
I was mad when I saw that. I've been a member since 2011. I was active duty then. I've never received such an offer.
Well,
That's the first time seeing that.
Yeah, and
Wow.
just the fact of what Megan and you and we had Norma on the show. Norma, her husband is a Vietnam veteran, a pastor for 53 years. And like the 2 people I talked about before that were up, they have over 1 million points told to buy points to rent. People that have been Wyndham members for 20 years, and a Worldmark agent, Worldmark by Wyndham, told her that the Wyndham agent lied about a benefit that was very important to them, and if they didn't buy Wyndham points, she owes Wyndham at age 80, and he will retire with no pension, $4,300 a month. So she's going to flip when she reads this. So go ahead and tell us, did I give an accurate description of what happened during the sales presentation that encouraged you were upgrading to get to a certain level, and you were happy with Wyndham before that?
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, in the past they have told me about I could rent my points, and I knew that wasn't, it wasn't going to work, but I still continue to be a member because I like the product. I would use all of my points till I was down to 0. And then, but yeah, I wasn't, I was like a bronze level, and I wanted to move up a tier. And I told the member, look, I'm not the member, I'm sorry, the sales agent, that, I can't afford to upgrade. But then he tells me that there's a military special, and that all I had to do was call the Wyndham Vacations ownership, and they'll be able to let me apply. And that he specifically said 6%.
Which
And
is
then, of
what
course, like how the sales agent will always try to write all of the numbers on paper, and I should have kept all of that, but
well, they don't let you. Now, was the recorded the signing of the papers, the closing, was that recorded?
I don't remember. It probably was.
Okay, and then when you learned that you weren't eligible for it, what has been your experience contacting Wyndham?
They're very dismissive. Well, first of all, so the sales agent told me to call maybe with like 10 to 15 business days. And at the time, I wasn't aware of the rescission period. So by the time it was too late
Okay, wait a
to
minute. What state
cancel,
did you buy in?
I was in the Desert Blue property in Las Vegas.
Okay, so you were in Nevada, and the
Mm-hmm.
this is the first I think I'm hearing this. The sales agent said to call in 10 days.
Yeah, 10 to 15 business days. Call like Wyndham Financial
Okay, so
to apply for the
specifically
6% military discount.
knowing that the rescission period in Nevada is 5
Yeah,
days.
I didn't know that, but that it wasn't until after the fact. So that right there, I like, I felt like, wow. So that was uh, like that. I don't
And
know. I just felt ripped off, like knowing that he probably knew about the 5-day rescission period, and by then it was too late for me. He told me to call 10 to 15 business days, and I didn't question like, oh, why 10 business days? But in retrospect now, I'm like, well, he probably said that so then that way I wouldn't cancel.
Hmm.
so you were a happy customer for like
I was
about
a
10
happy
years.
customer up until that point. I liked the product. I liked the timeshare. I've been through all of the, in the past, like I didn't like the way they would always sell me a new contract. Like, they would say, oh, you could rent your points. You can, that was never the case, but I still continued to be a member
And
because
you've been
I would take the time to, take vacations and use all of my points.
you were forced to stop making payments and you were in default.
Yes, because, so even after I bought the new contract, every time I go to these owner presentations, I would tell them, look, I'm going to be retiring soon and I'm not going to be able to afford it. And then, how they always try to sell you a new contract, or they would, they're still trying to continue to sell to me, or, oh, the only way we could lower the interest rate is if you were to buy a new contract and then we'll lower it. I didn't believe any of that at that point. But yeah, it's like, sorry, did you say something?
Well, no, but it's Taya was our very first guest on February 26th for this show, and she is a lead plaintiff in the Physics and Yorks versus Wyndham. And the Yorks, he's also been a pastor for 50 years, and he has dementia. His wife has a service dog, and they are Taya and her husband, and the Yorks are lead plaintiffs in that lawsuit. But the Service Members Civil Relief Act is a subset of that lawsuit. Now, I'm glad you were able to join us and whenever you have to hop off, go ahead and hop off. Andrew has to leave a little bit early, but Andrew was briefly one of the lead plaintiffs in Lewis versus Stein. I'm sorry, Stein versus Westgate. And there was a question which I misinterpreted you were yelling at me. What do you mean we're not covered by the Military Lending Act? And so I asked Taya about it today. And you are covered by the Military Lending Act, but only when you're activated.
Okay,
And
activated. Got it.
yeah, and apparently what you do is more, Andrew, can you explain it again? It's like a civilian employee.
So, yeah, Valerie, are you like AGR?
Yes, I'm AGR.
Okay. And I forget, I never got HR when I was in, but I forget what title is that under?
It's Title 32.
32. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is covered. I remember with going through this Steins versus Westgate thing, and with the lawyer helped me explaining about, well, you can't be part of it anymore because you weren't activated. And I think I'll have to look at the notes, but I believe you have to be on a Title 10 in order to qualify. So with AGR, it's different because it's Title 32. Same thing when during drill, it's your Title 32, but that's only for that time. And so when I got on, I was just normal traditional guardsman. So I didn't fall underneath that, other than the fact that I'm still at the time enlisted, but because of the MLA, I couldn't qualify for that.
Okay.
So that's the unfortunate thing. I was like, what, what do you mean I don't qualify? Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the military. Like that needs to be changed, because when you're enlisted, you're full time. You know, whatever uniform, when blue, or like full time blue, or part time U, full time blue. All that kind of thing. So that was very insulting to me. Not saying that, okay, because of the MLA, won't, just because of how the law is established, but that honestly really needs to change as far as that legislation, because then it is easy for someone like me going in for a sales agent, getting that information. Oh, you're military. And then whether they know about MLA or not, they can say like, oh, well, I could use that to my advantage to get someone stuck in this, and then they can't get out of it. Literally predatory lending. And so that's my biggest thing. And for me and my family, and for anyone and everyone who's in the military, whether they have retired since then, or in my situation, I couldn't re-enlist due to this awful situation. So,
well, and to also summarize that you're a couple, a young couple with a just turned 7-year-old, and Westgate sold you a 4-bedroom as a rental opportunity. Now, you've been on the show and explained that. We have Robin with us today, and I am so excited because Robin works with military spouses as part of her job, working for an employee assistance program that's government connected. And we have Megan, who is a military spouse, and both Megan and Andrew and Robin fell for this rental pitch. So Robin, could you go ahead and tell us why you believe this agent, and what has happened to you since I believe you've never made any payments except your down payment. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Because I've gone to many presentations. I actually use them that's how I travel. I accept the offers, the 3-day, 4-day packages, whatever they have for that small amount of money, and I accept them and I go. But I never ever have an intention on buying. But in a stage of my life, I wanted to do some like passive income. So I was considering, when I went to it at this time, and they sold it as, oh, you'll be able to make income off of it, because I live in Florida, but I was at an Orlando presentation, and what is the Orlando? The Disney. Everybody wants Disney, selling the locations, and they give you the whole spiel: location, selling you the spiel of location, and that there's always going to be availability, especially with the getaways, the unlimited getaways, meaning you can book unlimited. Of course, I understood the whole week things. I got every other year as an even year that I bought, because I bought it on Labor Day week or Memorial Day weekend. And mine didn't come into effect like every 2 years. I would get my week, but they gave you a bonus week, which really wasn't something they were giving you, because the bonus week you still end up paying, a fair amount of money even for the bonus week. But so yeah, they sold it to me as an opportunity to make money, and because we're in Disney, everybody wants to be in a Disney, and it's really a hot spot, vacation spot for everybody that goes to Orlando, Florida. So they did sell it to me as such, and like I said, I never would have wanted it other than for it being an opportunity for me to make some passive income off of it. And I remember calling them. I read the contract. I read it said 10 days, but I was thinking I still had at least up to 30. And by the time I did send the money request that I wanted to cancel the contract, because I didn't get access to all of the material to kind of like see what booking was like. They give it to Westgate, but most of it comes through the, I think it's International Interval, International Interval that you can have.
Interval International.
I didn't get access to that until after, because I was trying to understand it all, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't see it all either. I didn't have access to it because even on their site, it was limited. But I was like, okay, let me see what I can do through Interval International. But once I got it and saw it, I tried to cancel it like immediately. I was within 30 days, but I sent them information and they are refusing, telling me, the only way out is to either sell or get rid of it. But I was like, I'm not doing either one of those. And I just refused to make any further payments on it.
Well, and you just hit the nail on the head. Before we hear what happened to Megan, we are trying to find a lawmaker and our lobbyist that advised we set up our nonprofit said this was the most reasonable request he's ever taken to a lawmaker. And the first is the oral representation clause, which is buried in 80 pages of electronic fine print. And half the time it's on a cheap tablet that doesn't work. If they wanted you to know that you could not believe a word a sales agent said, which is not fair to the honest agents, that should be disclosed at or prior to the sales session. You get an appointment card, you get an email, it would just have to say at the bottom, do not rely on oral representations. The second is what you just mentioned. They always dismiss your complaint. You should have read the contract. You had 10 days to cancel if you're in Florida, 5 days in Nevada. Reading the contract and the rescission period would not have helped with Westgate, Wyndham, Blue Green, or Vacation Village, all famous. Just a new person reached out yesterday. Same thing. You can rent it out during Super Bowl and pay for the whole thing. And the third thing is the recorded closing. This came up in 2017 after over 1,000 Diamond members complained to the Arizona Attorney General. I was told even one of the Attorney General's attorneys complained. And I got a call from their PR firm, Prozac in Beverly Hills. We're going to go beyond the AOD, the assurance of discontinuance. We're going to record the closing session. And I said, that is going to be used as an entrapment. Andrew, as part of your report, you said that happened to you, correct?
Yeah.
That they will say, oh, I worked in finance and, before I came here, so I have contacts outside the industry. So don't say anything on the recorded closing. And so you don't. And then the response is, if this was important to you, you should have said something on the recorded closing. So I see we have Danica, right? And Megan. So Megan, go ahead. You and Danica, did I pronounce that name right?
You did.
And first of all, I just want to thank all of you for your service, but especially Megan's husband has been deployed to a combat zone, and he has been under fire 3 times since he has been deployed. Megan was pregnant with this little one here when they purchased. So Megan, go ahead and tell us what, if I summarized your situation and the fact that you might be considered to default, but the last thing you want to talk about when you get your precious moments to talk to your husband is a battle with timeshare. So thanks for being with us today, and we're looking forward to hearing your experience.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm so happy that I found you, because up until I talked to you, it just seemed like a lost cause. And I want to say, with that email that I got, I mean, I can't even describe the feeling it gave me reading that from Wyndham at this point, because it just showed me how disconnected they actually are from supporting the military. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and now an infant. And I just recently wrote a little children's book for my older 2 and my husband to try and help them understand why daddy has to leave. Because it's just, people outside of the military community don't understand what that means to young children who are dependents of military parents. So when companies like Wyndham send these emails out, oh, we want to support the military. Meanwhile, they're putting military families through this. It shows how disconnected they actually are on how to help support military families. And I think it was Valerie who said they're dismissive. They're not even just dismissive. They're downright nasty when you call. And they immediately jump to, well, where's your proof? Well, where's your proof? And I even, when I submitted our complaint, I was trying to tell them, like, our sales agent was fully aware of our situation because she sat at that table and watched us write down on paper, trying to like understand it and figure it out. And they said, well, where's that paper? Well, she gathered up all the papers after our meeting and then walked us into the recorded closing. So, but after she took us through that sales pitch.
Can you tell us in detail how she presented the ability to be able to pay, that the program would pay for itself?
Well, yeah. So when she finished the sales pitch, we told her it sounds like a great opportunity, but it's not the right time for our family. I was very pregnant with Danica. We had her other two playing on the floor under the desk. And we told her, I know we've got a baby coming this year. My husband's deploying this year. We couldn't even use it this year. And financially, we can't afford to pay on it when we're not even using it. So maybe down the road. That's when she told us, well, if you can't use the points, there's the option to rent them out and you will get paid out for those points that you rented. So she had presented the contract of 126,000 points. And I even reiterated back to her, okay, so if we go with this contract, and for this year example, we can't use it at all. So if I list all 126,000 points, is that enough to then cover the fees if we sign up today? For this year, renting out all the points, would that generate enough to then cover the fees? And she reassured us that it was. And then said, you would do it through extra holidays. So once you get set up, you would just reach out to them and they'll help you with doing all of that. That is the only reason that we agreed to sign a contract that day.
And you attempted to rent.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the other thing they like to jump back to. Well, you should have read your contract. And I'm like,
it wouldn't have helped.
In utopia, sure. But I was very pregnant and I actually experienced complications traveling home from that trip.
But the contract doesn't say that when you rent out your points to extra holidays that 60%, isn't it 60% goes to extra holidays and then 40% of the money goes to you?
Yes, and the other complaints are, and this happened to you, that if you are a Wyndham member and you want to cancel, you probably know, Valerie, if it's 30 days or something, but if you're renting, you can cancel up to 3 days. So you had a reservation cancel, right?
Right. So, I got through the end of the pregnancy. We got through getting my husband out on his deployment, and then I switched gears and I reached out to Extra Holiday. I said, okay, I've got 126,000 points. I need to rent out all of them. So they put them into 2 separate bookings at the Disney World Resort. And the agent who assisted me told me, she's like, in my recommendation, call back on this date before each of the bookings to confirm that they were reserved. And I said, okay. I actually was trying to have over, I can't think of the word. I was trying to be overly diligent about it. So I actually called earlier and they kind of snapped at me. Like, there's no reason for you to be calling earlier. Just call on this date for any information regarding the booking. I said, okay. So I did that and they said, yes, it's been booked. As soon as the reservation's completed, you will get a check mailed to you. So I said, okay. So I waited and nothing came. And so I called them back to follow up on it. And the agent I spoke to said, yeah, your reservation was completed. The check should probably go out like the first week of the following month. I said, okay. So I waited again. Nothing happened. I called a third time. That agent goes, that booking never, the renter's canceled. That booking did not complete. I told her what the previous agent had told me. She said, well, I can't speak to what another agent told you. I'm telling you what I'm seeing. The booking never finished. The renters canceled, which they have the option to do 3 days prior to check in. Well, we still had a second booking. And so the next time I had the availability to speak to my husband and let him know what has happened, he said, well, that's clearly a scam. Get the rest of our points back before we lose the rest of them for the year.
Because you lose the points if they're not rented. You don't get them back.
You don't get paid out for them and you don't get them back. So I called Extra Holiday to cancel the second booking and take the points back. And they said, you can't cancel because it's been reserved.
Oh.
So I said, okay, well, what are my options? What if they cancel before this reservation like the previous time? And they said, well, you don't really have options at that point because the owner renting out the points has to cancel, I think it's like 10 days before the reservation time. And if you don't cancel, well, first of all, if it's reserved, you can't cancel. If it hasn't been reserved, I believe you have 10 days to cancel and take your points back. So in my case where they were reserved, I couldn't take them back. But then the renters had 3 days before check-in to cancel. And at that point, my 10-day period has ended and I can't take them back anyways. Thankfully, that reservation did go through. And so we were paid out, I believe it was about $330.
And what were your maintenance fees? What are your maintenance fees for total?
Over $1,000.
Over $1,000. Now I want to read two other things that will send you equally through the roof. And the first of is Wyndham was awarded a $16 million judgment against an exit company, Pandora Marketing, and there was a law firm in California involved. And this is their press release. The impact of this $16 million judgment awarded to Wyndham is undeniable, and it sends a strong message that companies cannot falsely advertise and mislead customers without facing serious consequences. Now, give me a break. Are we really going to say that the people on this show are lying, didn't understand, making this up, copycatting? As Andrew said, he doesn't know Megan until yesterday, or Robin, and yet it's the identical story. Now that press release was by Yahoo Finance. So a couple years ago, there was another Yahoo Finance article. The title of this article is Why Hedge Funds Like Timeshare Stocks. In this article, we are going to look at another set of evil companies that use high pressure sales tactics to trick consumers into signing contracts, complex long-term contracts that they don't understand. Timeshare marketing companies. Check out this Wyndham Reddit post where the user is asking several questions about Wyndham cancellation. This person was able to cancel and receive a full refund, but many don't cancel. Now, I'm a retired stockbroker. I cannot imagine selling a stock because it harms families like that are with us today. And what they're comparing it, she compared it to is Philip Morris, that you can make a ton of money on Philip Morris stock while they slowly killed their customers. Now, Kimberly is backstage, and we have Andrew he mentioned that he was a lead plaintiff in this article, in this lawsuit, briefly until he was not, because of not being activated. So this is very important, especially since we're reaching out to lawmakers and regulators, is that Steins and Ormisher versus Westgate. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, and Andrew's named here, upheld the lower Florida court's decision in Orlando. And Judge Dalton, I've quoted him many, many times, where he concluded oral arguments that I cannot leave my underwear and toothpaste when I check out of a timeshare. The argument was whether a timeshare stay is a residential stay or a transient stay like a hotel, because the Military Lending Act exempts home mortgages. Even more important is the Military Lending Act prohibits arbitration, which we feel is a kangaroo court. There was a military family that reached out that were disputing a $12,000 purchase. They lost in arbitration. The judgment against them was $66,000. They were sold not enough points for a family of 6 to vacation for a week where they wanted to vacation, and they were ordered to pay over $50,000 of the resort's attorney's fees. Her husband had served, I think, 12 years in the Navy. So this is, to me, it's out of control. Now, before the Westgate, that basically, if it proceeds as we want it to proceed, voided anyone who purchased within the definition of a class period. I'm sure there'll probably be a motion to certify class go back to the lower court in Florida, and that would be a covered borrower, and any covered borrowers, and now we've clarified that includes active duty, National Guard, if you were activated when you purchased, those contracts would be voided. Now, prior to Steins and Ormisher versus Westgate, we had Lewis versus Blue Green. I attended the oral arguments at the appellate court in Jacksonville, and that lawsuit was dismissed by the 11th Circuit because they said they could not trace their damages, loss of down payment, specifically to the Military Lending Act. So there has been a writ of certiorari. An attorney told me even attorneys can't pronounce it very well, so they just call it cert, which means allowing a higher court to review a lower court's decision, from what I read. And they are saying that 3 circuit courts, the 2nd, the 9th, might have been the 8th, said that was not necessary. So the bottom line is, if you were stationed in California at Camp Pendleton or Fort Leonard Wood, you could proceed with a lawsuit. But if you were stationed in Florida or Georgia, you're subject to arbitration. You cannot proceed with a lawsuit. So that is ridiculous. Now, Kim's sister was on our show before, and Valerie left us, but now you know who Valerie is, Kim. And we want, we would like for your sister Kelly, who was kind enough to be on our show, and she offered with Andrew. She's licensed to lend money in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. And she will take on a timeshare credit score downgrade, and offered to, even if Andrew and Brooke are ready to buy a house, to find a lender that's licensed in your state. Because to me, there has to be a lawmaker that cares about this, because it's thousands of military families. And this hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil of the industry, with the dueling spins in the media, like these reports, the millennial timeshare boom. Timeshares are back bigger but better. And to put in that article, which was supported by the American Resort Development Association, ARDA, the reporter said quite simply, unlike Airbnb and hotels, timeshares hold their financial value, which is the polar opposite of what the truth is. So, Kimberly, we've talked a lot about changing the laws, and we're hoping that Kelly will continue to work with the people that have been harmed to do this. Now, Andrew, you're now looking for employment, and you have you been getting collection calls and while you were part of this lawsuit? But what's the status with your default right now?
Well, we haven't got any phone calls about for collections or anything like that. So quite interesting though. Maybe probably the past 2 months roughly started getting these emails from Westgate about, the reserve now and all this, benefits and these things and your member or whatever. But it was more generalized. It wasn't like specifically towards me, but I just found it interesting how all of a sudden, almost seems like clockwork, that I'm getting these emails because I hadn't received these emails for maybe a year or so. And so as far as the default, like, we haven't even called and asking or anything like that. No, I think there was one time Brooke got a phone call. I think the ID said, like, on the phone said like Westgate Resorts or something like that. I had to double check with her, but as far as nothing's really, as of right now, nothing's really been going on.
Well, and that's probably because you were named in that lawsuit, even if you're no longer a plaintiff. Now, we have Jeremy from Destination Timeshare. Jeremy is going to be on our show next week, Kim, with Joe Takacs, and we want to present the positive side of the industry. There are honest agents. There's millions of people that love their timeshare, just like our two Wyndham people loved their timeshare for 20 years and Valerie for 10 years until something happened. So Jeremy said no one goes to a sales present. Well, an attorney
I'll post it again. There we go. I don't think anyone goes to a sales presentation planning to buy.
Well, an attorney
told them I wasn't going to. And the prior CEO of Marriott Vacations said that timeshares is a product that is sold, not bought. So remember that. We've all been burned, so we got it. But
well, and an attorney said it a different way. He said, no one wakes up in the morning saying, I think I'll buy a timeshare today. Yep. Now, Robin, you mentioned that you accept these discount packages to make, because it makes it an affordable way to vacation. Those discounted packages are not free. Free vacations are not free. Anyone who signs a contract is paying for that vacation. It's in the overhead, and the commissions and marketing on timeshares are 50%. I've heard as high as 7%. So what we want to do is we want to recruit you, Robin, along with someone who sent Kim and I a recording in Las Vegas where it's legal to record. I can't believe it's not legal to record in Florida without the other person knowing, with all of these mecca timeshares here. But we played the recording where the sales agent said, now I'm not paid on commission. And we did not play the section where that Vacation Village sales agent was explaining how they could rent to cover the cost of the program. So, that if you just Google it, you can decide what state, you can learn what states it's legal to record. And I know Arizona, Nevada, and Missouri, and I believe North Carolina. It is not legal in Hawaii or Florida. And so, and Robin, have you been getting collection calls?
No, Ma'am, they called me when I was 30 days behind, but I clearly was telling them I'm trying to get out of it and I don't plan on paying, and they stopped calling.
Oh, that's pretty good. Now, what you can do if you do get a lot of calls is, for a while, a couple years, I thought that it had to be an attorney would send a cease and desist letter, but an individual can send a cease and desist letter. If you just Google it, then it will, you'll get all these law firms download your free cease and desist letter. And our process for dispute, we're not lawyers. So when someone, and oh, I forgot to mention too, we heard from an Army major, and she purchased Westgate 10 years ago and has never used it. And she stopped making payments 8 months ago. She would have been on the show today, but she wasn't available. We also, I mentioned we have Veterans Day coming up. Sonia is scheduled to be our guest on Veterans Day, along with a couple other veterans. Her husband, they purchased from Westgate. Her husband was 30 to 40% disabled when they purchased. And his service-related injury, I believe it was Army National Guard, I'll check it, but his service-related industry worsens as he ages. And so now he is 100% disabled, and he was forced into early retirement as a math teacher. And I don't know if Westgate has responded, but it will be shocking if they will grant medical hardship to that person. Now, Megan, if should your family decide to default, it's what we've had. I've talked to experts in this area. We know a law firm where one of the principals of the firm is a Marine veteran, and I was told this by a Special Forces veteran, that you should go to your supervisor or commanding officer. I think in the Army, Robin, it is the S2 intelligence officer. Do I have that correct? Would that be the supervisor?
I'm not sure who that is when they're on
Oh,
base.
okay. Okay, maybe just for that. But there's a disciplinary control review board. Are you familiar with them? Because I know, Robin, you work on the supporting the military, where those are military installations where each base, I think, has one, and you can lobby to make a business off limits. And we actually had someone who bought from Blue Green that asked me to help her write a press release for a down trace of 7,000 Army soldiers to warn them not to attend timeshare presentations. Because I think the military lifestyle is now, we all have new buyers on here now. Valerie was the one that had used it for a long time, but the problem with military buyers is if you buy a house and you can't afford it and it has a loan, you can sell your house, but it's pretty much impossible to sell a timeshare with a loan outstanding. The other thing is, as the timeshare loans, Megan, do you know what your loan is financed at? What interest rate?
I believe it's like 15%.
15%. Andrew, do you know your interest rate?
I think it was in the high 18, 19.
And Robin?
It was 17.99.
17.99. And
grossly inflated interest rates.
well, and Arda just was in this article saying that timeshare loans are just like traditional loans. They are not. And
No.
there's no underwriting.
There is no underwriting. There is nothing at all like a loan. A loan, you have a real agent sit down with you and go over every item of the paperwork you are signing. They don't really do that. They don't go over and make sure you've read everything. They don't spend hours with you. They spend 10 or 15 minutes with you. They spent 4 hours selling you and dehydrating you and starving you until holding you captive until you buy. But there's nothing similar. My sister said that their laws are not the same as the lending laws that they have for mortgages. And no.
Yep.
Well, and we just had another Wyndham person reached out on Saturday. They were referred by a timeshare resale agent that they had called. And this was almost as bad as the email that Megan sent me. But this couple, he's 80 years old. They signed off on a loan over $50,000, and they were told they're getting older, so they wanted to be released. They said, in order to be released from club access with Wyndham, you have to buy property. Wyndham agents don't sell points anymore. And when he spelled the name of the sales agent wrong, and so I said, and then he said, oh, I spelled that wrong. When he spelled it correctly, I knew the last name. And I said, please, oh my gosh. And then he said the sales manager's name. And then my eyes really bugged out, because this sales manager called me when he was with Diamond Resorts about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and said that he wanted to report all the deceptive practices that the other Diamond sales agents were doing. And one of them he worked with was with this female agent. Her criminal record is she was arrested and pled guilty for identity theft and forgery. Working with folks like you, lending millions and millions of dollars. And then she used to work with a person we do have on a recording in Missouri, fabricating a maintenance fee relief program if they bought more points. He was arrested for something new I had never heard of before, huffing cans. And in the newspaper article, they said he was huffing so many cans that the police officer hoped that he'd get some help when he goes to jail. So we had someone who was harmed that worked for the Pentagon. She's a veteran, and she helped us compile a list of 23 agents, of which I think half of them are in Virginia, that are selling timeshares. One of them, and this sales manager with Wyndham was the one that told me that one of the sales agents was here as an agent of the Syrian government to silence, intimidate, and harm those protesting the Syrian regime. Perfect for selling timeshare. We have another recording of an attorney who was unanimously disbarred from the Missouri Supreme Court for misappropriating trust accounts due to his gambling, cocaine, and mental health addictions. Within a year, he was hired in Missouri by Diamond Resorts to sell timeshares. Now, these two people I just told you about selling for Wyndham, they previously were a team at Diamond, and then I heard they went to Blue Green, and then Hilton bought Blue Green and Diamond, so now they're at Wyndham. And I just don't understand how all of this can go on. Now, Megan, I wanted to ask you as well, have you talked to your husband any more about this situation, or do you just not want to take away from the time you have with him to discuss this?
I haven't talked to him about, I let him know that I got in touch with you and that you've been helping me just get in touch with like the other owners and try and learn more about that. It's not just us, because we definitely felt really foolish afterwards when we realized just how badly we were scammed.
Wait a minute there, because we have the book we promote written by Doug Shadell at AARP, Outsmarting the Scam Artist. And he explained how nobody is smart enough to outsmart a scam artist 1 week, about a year ago, 3 attorneys called me in the same week. One of them was an enforcement attorney for the state of Michigan. One of them was a consumer protection attorney for California. One was a JAG officer in Oregon or Washington. All 3 of them were called to report deceptive practices by Diamond Resorts. So don't beat yourself up. You've got enough to worry about without feeling foolish.
Well, and it's just I haven't even brought up that having to go into default or any of that might have to be a possibility with him, because as you mentioned, like, there's various kinds of deployments. His is not a good one. It's not one where he needs to be distracted by things back home. He needs to be focused.
And Robin, while we have you on here, I'm so excited for you to be with us, and with your role, the type of work you do. As long as we have someone who works with military spouses, and we have a military spouse here, can you talk a little bit about your work and what I know Employee Assistance Program? I used to market them for the Sisters of Divine Providence for Granite City, Illinois, their St. Elizabeth Hospital, so I do know what they are. But is it just basically mental health and chemical dependency? What types of problems do you address, and what can you do for the families?
So the organization that I work for, part of the EAP for the military, I work on the spouse's side as a career coach. I don't know if you heard of Megan, the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program, the SECO program. I'm a career coach for SECO. So we help military spouses with academic advisement. If they're eligible, they got a tuition assistance scholarship or grant they can use to go to school. But I help with career readiness services, career exploration, career development, interviewing skills, job search techniques, mock interviews. I help with all of that. We're a component of an umbrella. The SECO program is, but they also have access to Military One Source, who has all the EAP and non-medical counseling services, emotional health, communication support, anything they need, especially if their service member is deployed and they need some resources and services. They have certified professional counselors there that can help with things like, budgeting and investing and things like that. They have a range of resources. I work on the umbrella with military spouses only through the education career program, who supports them with talking about education and their career and finding jobs because of the challenges they face as military spouses. When a lot of them want some, look for remote work using their skills. There's a lot of free resources they can get upskilled. There's also just a range of resources to help them, especially because there's so much when they're trying to relocate. They move around a lot as military spouses and trying to find a job, only staying at jobs for 2 and 3 years at a time. So through the SECO program, we support them with that. And I've been there over 10 years as a career coach. But Military One Source, I worked on that side too, that do provide non-medical counseling services and a range of other resources and tools for them through that umbrella program.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually work full-time from home at night. And you are absolutely right. It's really the only option for a lot of us spouses whose husbands are in active service, because it's just not realistic to be able to work outside of the home, relocating as much as the military can relocate, especially when you're relocated to states where you don't have family around or trusted childcare, and even childcare prices. It's not realistic when you've got a family like ours. So and that was another thing, Irene, is my husband and I had discussed me not going back to work after Danica was born, because I have my hands full. And I just told him, I'm like, as long as we're dealing with this Wyndham stuff, we don't have the option. Like, I have to keep working.
And the name of the department at Wyndham is Wyndham Cares.
Yeah, that's the biggest joke in the country. And we will be contacting someone about that as well. But unfortunately, we have to wrap up now. And this has been so informative. And Robin, thank you so much for
Oh,
the
that was
information you gave
terrific.
and what you're doing, because someone needs to be there as an advocate. And Irene, you are an advocate as well as your whole team. We have a beautiful team working with Irene, but everyone, every Monday, 1 o'clock, be here to help support us, support Irene, unite and support each other. And let's start changing laws and making a difference. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.